What is up, Only Playbook fans? We are back for another episode. We are recapping 4 weeks of football. Week 4 is under our belt. Show the infamous Week 4, where you can finally start to make decisions.
Game on, baby. Everybody better watch the fuck out.
Start to actually think about the future, and players are set in stone with kind of what we expect them to do in the season, whether you're buying high, selling low, whatever you're doing. So a lot to unfold here. Again, the usual suspects in the Only Playbook. I'm Sweetheart, Shishot, Shovit. What's going on, guys?
Not much. We back. I'm ready to hear what Shishot has to say about Week 4. I've been thinking about this all week. I'm like, it's Week 4. It's finally here. Let's see what's going on.
For some, it's a good feeling. For some, it's a bad feeling. And in one of my leagues, just happens to be our league that I'm in, just sitting at a pretty 1-3. Pretty 1-3 with 2 games where you lose by 1 point and lose by 4 points. So it's not the best of Week 4s, but, we have all the data we need. And we're going to tell you guys all about what we've gathered so far and what to do moving forward.
Wow, breaking news. Aaron Judge just hit a 60-second home run, broke the record.
Oh, nice.
First at bat, it was in Texas. This was the second game of their doubleheader. I was trying to tell Son this. You need to freaking go. I was trying to tell somebody to go.
There was a slim chance that I was going to go to that game. And what's funny is my girlfriend's supposed to be in that game right now, but she took a nap and she didn't get there on time, so she's going to miss it.
So she's like, I missed out on $5 million baseball that could have fallen right in her
potentially, lap.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. Good for him.
Yeah, good for Aaron Judge. Happy for him. But yeah, enough baseball talk. Let's jump right into the football action, guys, with water cooler talk. Couple things to highlight before we jump into the dreaded injuries here. Steelers are rolling with Kenny Pickett, or as he's looking like being known, Kenny Pittsburgh, as QB1 in Pittsburgh. It's not the best nickname. I think they can still come up with something better, but Kenny Pittsburgh for time being kind of makes sense for me. So Kenny Pittsburgh is going to be QB1 with his small hands. Mitch Trubisky, number 2. Mason Rudolph doesn't seem like he's going to really scratch the field. So at least there is some hope for Steelers fans that the future can be a little bit different. I know they didn't still end up winning their victory or winning their game against the Jets, but we'll dive into that a little bit more. Panthers, not maybe to the liking of their own team, but just based on the fact that they don't have many other options, still sticking with Baker Mayfield for the time being. I know it's going to be either Baker or Sam Darnold, so I feels like
Darnold's back. Darnold's healed.
He's healed, but is he back to being a good enough football player to
might be
on the field?
It might be better than how Baker Mayfield's playing right now.
Yeah, very well could be the case. But for right now, Matt Rule has not decided that he's going to make a quarterback change. Longtime NFL cornerback Jimmy Smith officially announces his retirement. I thought he was already retired, honestly. I didn't even know he was still around, but he'd been in the league for a while with the Ravens. I think most notoriously as far as what he's known for. So good cornerback, finally calls it a career. Let's jump into the dreaded segment of injuries. I was trying to post something on Twitter where I got really clever and I was like, oh, waiver wires this week is going to be and I was trying to think
Halloween-y?
No, not Halloween-y, but I was thinking of the scene in Game of Thrones in the Battle of the Bastards where Jon Snow is crawling out of that pile of bodies and stuff, suffocation. Everybody's just kind of jumping in. And knowing that these injuries have sufficed and that's going to transpire, that's kind of what I expected the waiver wires to look like here at 4 a.m. Eastern time here tonight. First things first, Tua Tagovailoa is ruled out week 5 with the concussion. Looks like they're going to play it safe and not take any chances. I'm sure if all of this crap hadn't come out, maybe they'd probably push him and play him week 5, but he is officially out for week 5 in terms of quarterbacks. Falcons running back Cordero Patterson, knee injury, is on the IR, so he's expected to miss at least 4 weeks. Probably bodes well if you continue to stash Tyler Algier. I did not. I drafted him and then dropped him because I thought it was pointless. But now it looks like he is going to be fantasy relevant. Another really sad injury. Broncos running back Javonte Williams tore his ACL and his PCL, I believe, or ACL and LCL. 2 of the CLs. LCL. He is out for season. Looks like that's going to be a long recovery ahead. I know all of us were really, really kind of on that Javonte hype train, so really sad to see on his front. Colts linebacker Shaq Leonard is going to be out Thursday Night Football with a concussion.
Jesus.
They are on a short week. He just cannot get healthy and stay on the field. I know he's a big IDP guy.
This man is ruining my life. I keep starting him, keeps giving me 0 points. So thank you for telling me finally. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. End of Shaq Leonard. Maybe he should not have changed his name. I feel like ever since he changed his name, he just can't stay on the field. So go back to Darius. That's what we know you as. Giants quarterback Daniel Jones, day-to-day with that ankle injury. Tyrod Taylor did see action this past week, but I think they are optimistic Daniel Jones can go. If he can't go, I don't know if it's that much of a drop-off with Tyrod Taylor at the helm with a team that has been revolved around Saquon Barkley and their defense. Colts running back Jonathan Taylor suffered a high ankle injury towards the end of the game on Sunday, so there is no excuse for why he shit the bed. So I'm not trying to make that excuse.
I feel like this is a Dalvin Cook situation because high ankle injuries do not that's long term hurt. That's pain. That's like 6 weeks of serious pain. And there's a question, you played Thursday night, and he did injure it right when he fumbled, right? Am I wrong? So it's like these guys. I'm watching you, Jonathan.
In his defense, like what happened in the play was the guy fell back on his leg and he like went back. And as soon as the guy fell and he went back, that's when he dropped the ball. So I was like, yeah,
I see.
You know, whenever like some guy gets hit really hard and you can just tell they got hurt and they dropped the ball. That's kind of what it looked like.
Okay.
But yeah, it's still not an excuse. I'm not excusing his performance. I'm not excusing the fumble, but nonetheless, he is hurt. And like you said, high ankle, usually you're looking at least 3 to 4 weeks, right? I mean, at least 3 weeks. And so for them to think he might play this Thursday night in 2 days, I don't think he's going to play. I think Nyheim Hines is probably going to see a lot of work, especially because he sees work as a pass catcher anyway. So that is going to be somebody that you probably look to grab in waivers if he's not already rostered. Titans wide receiver Treylon Burks was carted off the field on Sunday with a turf toe. Turf toes are the worst. I don't expect him to be playing this week.
The turf toe is not as worse as Treylon Burks, though. So thank you for telling us you're not playing. I don't have to roster you. I'm sorry about your injury, though. Truly.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think Robert Woods is just getting thrusted into this wide receiver 1 role, whether he likes it or not, whether he can actually produce as a wide receiver 1 or not. It's just kind of, they have no other options. So Robert Woods, whether you like it or not, you're a wide receiver 1. Patriots quarterback Brian Hoyer also left Sunday's game with a concussion. He was already replacing Mac Jones, who had been hurt. So Bailey Zappi saw some action. So there is an opportunity that Bailey Zappi plays this week with no Mac Jones, no Brian Hoyer. I don't know what that means for that team. I don't know what that means for fantasy. It's not like any of the receivers were really viable or startable in fantasy anyways, but you're probably still starting a running back or 2 on that team.
Real quick, shout out to Paul Bozak for wanting Zappi to start week 1. And here you go. You got your wish. Week 4 magic, baby.
Is he a Patriots fan?
Yeah, he's a Patriots fan. He's a Tom Brady fan. He kind of follows Tom Brady around, but he wears Patriots attire exclusively. And whenever week 1 happened, like before week 1, he was like, can't wait for Bailey Zappi to get to start eventually. And here we go. Bailey Zappi time.
He wants Bailey Zappi over Mac Jones too?
He's seen like what Mac Jones' ceiling is. He's a big Patriots fan. So he knows like the depth of his players. And he thinks Zappi, he thinks they're all the same players. Just one has like more potential than the other one. And we don't know anything about Zappi, but he sees something in him. Maybe it comes out to be true. Maybe it comes out to be wrong, like Paul usually is.
That's a lot of times what potential is, right? It's just potential because you haven't seen what it is.
Yeah.
So I think that the uncertainty is what makes it more exciting or more intriguing than anything. Because is Bailey Zappi a better quarterback than Mac Jones? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe he is. But like you said, we've already seen Mac Jones for a year and some games, and it seems like we already kind of know what the best of Mac Jones is going to look like. So I'm with him in the fact that at least you get to put another quarterback there where you don't know what you're going to get. Bills wide receiver Isaiah McKenzie also left the game with a concussion. There was seems like a very asserted effort to make sure players got removed from concussion. I wonder why that was. So Isaiah McKenzie left the game with a concussion, and so he is also questionable for this week. Lions already so bleeding from the skills position. Their only wide receiver, one of their only wide receivers left on the field, Quintez Cephas, left the game with a foot injury. That's why Josh Reynolds came onto the field and actually had a nice game, and Hawkinson played the game of his career. So that's something to monitor, see what weapons will be available. And it doesn't seem like it matters for Jared Goff, all of a sudden the best fantasy quarterback alive. Giants wide receiver Kenny Golladay exited the game with a knee injury. Obviously, Mr. $70-90 million man. I forget the number just because every time it makes me want to rip my brain out. He exited the game with a knee injury. Looks like he's not going to be relevant as if he was relevant thus far. And then lastly, Ravens running back Justice Hill hurt his hamstring on literally his final carry of the game. I know they're easing J.K. Dobbins back in, and he had a nice fantasy day, but maybe this means Dobbins is going to have to see extra workload, whether he likes it or not. That is it for injuries on my end, guys. Did I miss anybody?
No, just the usuals. Julio Jones still, the usual stuff.
Old. I just put those guys under the old category, so it's just not even worth mentioning. But yeah, no, absolutely. Those guys are going to be on the injury report probably every week. That's it for injuries, guys. Let's jump into the action with the rundown. That kicks things off in London on Sunday. The Vikings traveled to the New Orleans Saints, or so to speak, but they both played in London at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where Vikings were 2.5-point favorites. They did end up covering that spread over 43.5 cashes. 28-25 final. Minnesota takes this game. No Jameis Winston on that side. No Alvin Kamara on that side. No Michael Thomas on that side. But the Vikings still come away victorious. It was a sloppy game. I think a couple of things I wanted to mention in terms of how sloppy it was. Vikings only converted 2 out of 5 times in the red zone. The Saints had 10 penalties for 102 yards, lost the turnover battle. So both sides didn't play their best. There were big drops on the Vikings side. Again, that seems to be the theme of the season early on. But the good news is even despite all of that, Minnesota still climbs to 3-1. Justin Jefferson still ended up having 10 catches, 147 yards. Adam Thielen got going, 8 for 72. Dalvin Cook, not the best day, 20 carries for 76 yards, but they got the job done. And Kirk Cousins, not the prettiest of stat lines. That wasn't help with drops, but obviously came back 2 times in the fourth quarter to bring the Vikings to a victory. On the Saints side, worth mentioning, Chris Olave continues to produce 4 for 67 and a touchdown. And randomly, Latavius Murray comes out of nowhere. This guy is the king of vulturing touchdowns in the NFL across the board. 11 carries, 57 yards, and a touchdown. Vikings, again, take care of business. I think the biggest thing I want to highlight here, guys, is I was really hard on this victory. And the more I sat on it and spewed on it, the more I realized that this team last year lost, almost every single game by 1 score, right? So the difference in the NFL, the margin for error is very thin. So for us to still not be playing our best football, to be 3-1 with wins against the Packers, with wins against the Saints, obviously winning a game in the division against the Lions, I'll take that all day long. We get the Bears on the road here next week, so our chance to go 4-1, still waiting to click on all cylinders on offense. I think that's a great place to be.
Yeah, you hit that dead on. I'm just going to add something really quickly, and it's the fact that I started Mark Ingram, right? Like safely. I'm like, oh yeah, Alvin Kamara's gone. It's just going to be Ingram fest. This mother flipper gets signed a couple of days ago, and he's like, oh shit, I'm not done vulturing. Let me vulture the backup. Bro, this is so annoying, man. I may have won this week if it wasn't for this guy vulturing my vulture's vulture.
Dude, Latavius Murray, anytime he gets mentioned on this podcast moving forward, he's going to have his own special vulture soundbite. So I'm going to make sure anytime Latavius Murray gets said on this podcast moving forward,
you're going to regret that. You're going to regret that
Latavius Murray and then Latavius.
He looks a lot like Latavius Murray.
Vulture. Dude, it's unreal. And didn't he played for the Saints and then he got dropped and he got picked up
by a different team, and then I think that ended really quickly, and then he just got repicked back up and just played the game and scored a touchdown.
That's just wild, man. The dude continues to produce when he plays, but no team actually wants him as a long-term answer. It's so sad. But all he does is come in and score touchdowns. So he's still making money. He's still producing. Good for him. I'm happy to see that for Latavius, a.k.a. Tay-Train. But the Vikings win this one, move to 3-1, the first game on Sunday in London.
Next game up, we have the Browns at Falcons. Oh, man, the under hit on this one, 45.5. Wow. I mean, I don't really know what to say. It was just pretty much exactly what you would expect these teams to do. There's, nothing exciting anywhere. There's some flashes of youngsters popping in and out. But one thing of note, I actually wrote my notes during the game, and this was before Cordell Patterson got hurt. And I was watching him score that touchdown, and I'm like, that's it. That's the moment. That's when I'm going to sell Cordell Patterson in both my leagues. I have him. Because, there's enough evidence to be like, dude, this guy's legit. There's 2 games over 20+ points. And now this game put him at like 9, close to 9, I think. And he got hurt, so he didn't get to continue. But it would have been the perfect opportunity to get rid of him, because I saw this MFer youngster, Algier, just climbing up the rankings. 10 carries for 84 yards, 1 catch for 20 yards, making the most of his opportunities, 2 broken tackles on his first game, getting this much work. This is a superstar in the making. This guy can handle the bruisability of an every down back. He can catch passes. So I think we have something special here. I think we're seeing something happen here. And they never really wanted Cordell Patterson to stick around for too long. This was not going to be a future thing, and now they have exactly that. So I'm excited for them. And don't forget, he still has somebody behind him, just not really as relevant as we think it is. The person to go and get right now is Algier. And another thing to note is, at what point are you the fool for starting Kyle Pitts? I'm clearly that fool because I've started him 4 weeks in a row. I have Darren Waller in the same league, and I start them both. That's how big of a fool I am. And at this point, 4 targets for 1 reception and 25 yards. Bro, and the sad thing is that's his second best game of the year. He's had 2 games worse than that. So at this point, the finger has to get pointed at Mariota, right? Like we've seen the raw talent that Pitts has. Mariota's the guy that we clearly see just playing poor. He can't give Drake London can't be trusted anymore because of the way Mariota's playing. You know, if you have Olave, if you have even Robert Woods, I'm starting Robert Woods before I start London if Mariota is going against a difficult defense. You know, these are the things that week 4, and we talk in week 4, like these are the decisions that have to be made now. There's enough evidence to say where these people are trusting their players, where these people want to see their youngsters get more of the carries. All of that is happening in front of our eyes. And I hope a lot of people saw all of that because it's going to make all the difference moving forward. Another thing, Browns' Anthony Walker went down, a huge IDP player. He went down. The backup came into the game and he was heavily targeted. Every run play went towards him. Every pass play was towards him. And that's also another reason for a majority of the Falcons' running success. I don't think you can see Algier get 10 carries for 84 yards against good teams. Just keep that in mind. And then, you know, you get what you see with Brissett. Not somebody you want to start, but not somebody you want to fill in either. Just look at other options. Don't get carried away with the stats he put up last game. This is more along the lines of what you're going to see. And then Chubb, you know, what again, I keep saying there's nothing more to add, but I keep adding stuff, but it's the same stuff. Chubb, the best pure running back in the game, just keeps chubbing along, 23 plus fantasy points. I remember jokingly, I said I would take him number 1 overall before we did our draft if Watson was starting. Well, Watson's not starting, and you know who the number 1 running back in football is? It's Nick Chubb. He's that deadly. This guy is clearly by far the best weapon on the field when he touches the ball. And when you're doing squats with 600 pounds, I mean, that's 2 Aaron Donalds, probably more. You know, he's just running through these guys like there's no tomorrow. And if he was in a better offense, the numbers would be better. So a lot to look forward to with chubbing along the rest of the season. Hunt, this is probably closer to what you're going to get with Hunt, 8.8. Some games are going to get more catches and make that number look a little bit better. But classic Falcons game, classic Browns game, just pretty much everything what we expected.
Awesome. Next up, we have Washington Commanders at the Dallas Cowboys, and Dallas Cowboys comes out with a win, 10-25 there. You know, it's crazy to think that Cooper Rush is now 3-0 as a starter.
4-0, I think.
Yeah, the Vikings got torched on Monday night.
Yeah.
3-0 this year as a starter, all time 4-0. But this year they are 3-0, which is crazy to think. Dak Prescott's still unhealthy. He can't even grip the ball yet. So there's going to be more.
Is that an excuse now just because Cooper Rush is 4-0 or 3-0? Like, you think they're just going to continue to be like, yeah, he can grip it, but he just can't quite throw the spiral yet. Yeah, he can throw the spiral, but there's just not quite velocity. And then when Cooper Rush starts sucking, all of a sudden, oh, Dak's making great progress. He's going to.
That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry Jones wants to make it a competitive, like for QB1. You know, who's going to start? He wants there to be a little bit of.
It's there. It's there.
Competition. Yeah.
Competition there, exactly, and it's definitely there. You know, the guys that he's throwing to are also helping him out. So the Cowboys had a great game from CeeDee Lamb, who had 6 receptions, 97 yards, 1 touchdown, and then Michael Gallup back from his injury, had a touchdown, and Noah Brown 3 for 61. So all great, you know, it's decent numbers for the receivers. That was kind of we talked about, like, who is Cooper Rush even going to throw it to? Who are these Cowboys going to throw it? Well, we have their receivers that are now stepping up, and with Michael Gallup, that's looking really good. Running game, not so well for the Cowboys. Zeke, 19 for 49 yards. Really not the production that you want to see from your second round, third round guy. And Tony Pollard, he didn't have such a strong game either. 8 carries for 6 yards, matter of fact, last game. But moving on to the Commanders, man, you know, we saw really good things from Carson Wentz the first 2 weeks, and now he's kind of humbled, put back down to earth. He didn't get sacked much. There was only 2 sacks in the game on Carson Wentz by the Dallas Cowboys, but enough to get 2 interceptions. He threw 2 interceptions, and in 42 attempts, he only completed 25 passes. So the Cowboys are doing something right on defense, enough to, even if they don't get the sacks, they're getting the interceptions. They're not causing the receivers to get the ball. So all good signs on Dallas Cowboys. They need to win, as the Eagles are doing really well, right? They need to keep on to be competitive. And so good things from there. One thing I want to point out, we didn't talk about this in injuries. Jahan Dotson is set to miss a couple of weeks. So if you've been starting Dotson, or if you have him on your bench, just he's not going to be someone you can start in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's that defense, man. Cowboys defense. It's not like Cooper Rush is carrying this team to victory. Cooper Rush is just doing enough behind that pass rush, and that defense is just insane. I mean,
I'm not sure if I've seen a pass rush like that in recent times.
Dude,
pretty ridiculous.
They're terrifying. They're terrifying. And again, it's complimentary football. Trayvon Diggs all of a sudden has like one of the highest pass defense grades in all of PFF right now. And it's because, again, the pass rush is dictating how the secondary can play. The secondary can be insanely aggressive, knowing that pass rush is so vaunting, and they're going to get there more times than not. So Cowboys defense is a great fantasy pickup. I was surprised. I think I picked them up. I was surprised that they were even free agents, but that's a great defense you probably want to think about playing, especially because they will get the Commanders again. And they have, again, outside of Hurts, maybe the Giants offense isn't anything to write home about, and their schedule is not insanely tough. So that's a good streaming defense option if you're looking for one. That takes us to one of the wildest games on Sunday. The Seahawks were traveling to Detroit to take on the Lions. Lions at home, favored by 4 points, lost at home, 48-45. Seattle covers a 4-point dog spread. They push the over by themselves, 48 points. Both teams had over 500 yards of offense. Seattle punted the ball a total of 0 times, guys. 0 times they punted the football. Lions only punted the ball twice. Geno ain't writing back nothing. 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. What else did he do? 7 carries, 49 yards, and ran a touchdown in, bro. I should have listened to you, Shishot, and started Geno Smith, but no, I started Marcus fucking Mariota. Luckily, it didn't end up mattering, but if it had mattered, man, I'd be writing something to Marcus Mariota. I don't know about what, but I'd be writing him something. Rashad Penny, somebody we've been high on and couldn't understand why this guy was not getting the love and respect he deserved. 17 carries, efficiently running for 151 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Receivers are relevant still. As long as Geno's going to put up points and stats, so is the rest of the team. DK, 7 catches, 149 yards. I can't even remember the last time DK did that with Russell Wilson. Lockett, 6 for 91. On the other side, Jared Goff literally was throwing to probably a ragtag group of guys that may not ever see the football field again. But what did he do? 378 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. Unreal. 1 interception, obviously. And then you had Jamal Williams doing great things on the ground, replacing DeAndre Swift. 19 carries, 108 yards, and 2 touchdowns. This game was fantasy galore. And all those stats still don't tell the best game that an individual performer had on Sunday. TJ Hawkinson, 8 catches, 179 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Oh, by the way, Josh Reynolds came in to fill in nicely for 781 and 1 score. Unreal fantasy game, unreal offensive outpour. I mean, if you're a Seahawks fan, you're probably loving this game. If you're a Lions fan, honestly, it's probably a really exciting game to watch. If you had anybody fantasy relevant in this game, they probably ended up doing well for you. So
what if you started Hawkinson for 3 weeks in a row and he put up poo-poo points and you dropped him 2 days before, and your opponent picked him up and played him against you and beat you? What about that guy?
You're never playing fantasy football again.
That guy.
That guy is you,
right? That was you dropped Hawkinson?
Yeah, man. It's a 10-team league, and it's stacked all across the board. And I had some spots open because of recent injuries, and I picked up O. Smith, and I picked up the dude from the Jets, former Viking, Tyler Conklin. And I'm like, I'm blowing out these people. I'm blowing out these opponents. I have by far the most point scorer in this league. And I ended up playing as the second highest point scorer. I didn't even look at the opponent. I should have looked at the opponent. And I just dropped Hawkinson. I'm like, just not having it. I don't feel like it. I just made a decision, and it came back to bite me in the biggest fucking way. And now they won't stop putting Hawkinson memes. So I don't know when that's going to end.
Damn, the Hawkinson, you're the baby on the shoulder with your face, and Hawkinson's your dad. Basically, that's the meme.
Man,
that's so funny. The biggest fear in fantasy football is dropping a guy that like goes off on you, and this is exactly what happening.
3 times. It's happened 3 times. Drop Jameson Wilson, not Jameson Wilson. What's the Wilson from the Jets name?
Zach Wilson?
No,
Garrett Wilson.
Drop Garrett Wilson. Drop this mother effer. And then there was one other situation which I can't remember, obviously.
Dude, unreal. 8 for 7, 179, 2 touchdowns. He was everywhere. Again, insane offensive outpouring. Again, 0 punts for the Seattle Seahawks and Geno Smith, man. That team is some team to watch out for early in the season as they win this one 48-45.
Next game on the board, we had the Titans at the Colts. The Colts, I'm not sure if they know who they are, but they took a huge L, 24-17. The under hit at 43. Indianapolis was minus 3.5. Man, this was a battle of 2 powerhouses of last year, right? The last couple of years we were like, these are playoff teams. Let's see how these teams go. And now we've kind of written both of these teams off fairly early. If you really think about it, there's a lot of things to not like about these teams than there is to like. But, it's this division that just tends to do things like this, and they all tend to like flow in this pattern. When one team's sucking, the other ones are sucking. When one team's doing well, the rest of them are doing well. Titans kind of defeat those odds the last couple of years or so, but looks like we're right back on that wagon. First time this year, the king of all fantasy football, King Henry, surpassed 100 yards rushing. 20 carries for 112 yards. And what's funny is 79 of them were after contact, which means that the line is not doing a great job. This Titans line is still a little hobbled, and there's still a lot of work to do because their best wide receiver is a second best receiver on any other team. So, there's not much to do for the defense besides just play nickel while all these other teams are playing cover two in dime fashion. So, there's just more people at the line stopping King Henry. However, it didn't really matter in this game. He just ran through them 79 yards after contact. That's very impressive. That tells a lot about King Henry and who he is. He just gets more powerful as the season goes on, more powerful as the game goes on. Again, like I mentioned earlier, not to bash on his injury or anything, but Terlon Burke sucks. He had that asthma issue all offseason. I'm not sure if it's lingering. It just doesn't seem like a good fit while all these other rookie wide receivers are kind of thriving in their positions. You could argue, is probably in one of the best positions. Straight off the bat, he was willing to start, and it just hasn't worked out. The team kind of is not, on his favor as far as putting up game scripts to give him a lot of wide open, deep bombs, but he's not making the most of the targets he's getting, and it's pretty obvious it's time to drop him. Jonathan Taylor, man, if you drafted him, you are just living with the outcome at this point. Or you just have to bite the bullet and sell low while you still can. It all depends on what your outcome is. It depends on what you've seen is happening near the playoff time. What type of teams is he going to face? Is there a lot of rain? Are we playing in the snow outdoors? Just look into all of those situations later on in the season and decide for yourself if you're willing to give up your number one pick for some other little picks, which can easily be handled. If you're a swindler, you can make that work. Or if you just want to, just bite the bullet and just ride it and see what happens. One thing we know for sure is Carson Wentz is clearly more dynamic than Matt Ryan could ever be. It's a similar offense, pretty much the same offense, just to replace the quarterbacks, and things have gotten significantly worse. And then the next thing of note here is Ken Hines handled the load. I know, Sweetcar, you mentioned him earlier as a early week pickup. He's just not a true number one back. He's not going to be able to run 20 times and catch 5 passes. He's just not built like that. So there is going to be some other running options here. Just I'm not sure this is all ready for the preview episode. I'm just kind of previewing the preview episode, but all of that we'll talk about who they face and what to look for. But as of right now, Hines would be a good waiver wire pickup just from a pure passing standpoint and just getting even 10 carries standpoint. It's somebody to look at. Just don't go all balls deep and use all your fab if it is a fab league. It's just there's a couple things we need to say here before I move on. And I don't see a world where a Titans wide receiver gets started for the rest of the season. Even if you have their number one option right now, Robert Woods, it's a deep league stash, like a 12-team stash or bench. 10-team league, I can see him rotting on the free agency. At this point, how things are going, there are better options. There are rookies that are better options. Romeo Doubs is still chilling in some fantasy free agency. Not sure if anybody in that league knows what's going on, but that man is going to score a lot of fantasy points moving forward. So just keep in mind, don't hoard things at this point. At this point, we've seen what this offense is, and you're going to get a couple games where you get a touchdown here and there, but the volume is not something he can handle. It's still going to be run first with Derrick Henry.
Yeah, Nyheim Hines is this guy that's set to start, but it may be Deion Jackson as well. So which guy gets the benefit of that? Well, we'll find out more. All right. Next up, we've got the Chicago Bears at New York Giants. The Giants, they covered the spread. So 12-20 is the final score there. So this game was all rushing by the Giants. Man, the Giants had 262 yards on the ground game, which is crazy, led by Saquon Barkley with 146 yards on 31 carries. And Daniel Jones also had 68 yards. And 2 touchdowns, which was the only 2 touchdowns in the game. So the Bears had no answer for the rushing game, and even when Tyrod Taylor came back in, all the Giants did was run the ball. There was a chance where at the end of the game the Bears could have came back, and if you watch the game, it was the longest, I guess, 2 seconds. Yeah, longest 3 seconds of all time. I mean, the whole play took 45 seconds of lateral after lateral, and I thought they were actually going to be successful at one point. But the game ended with a fumble, and the Giants came out on top. But Fields, we keep talking about whether or not he's good or not, but he's just not going to get anywhere getting sacked 5 times, right? He gets sacked 5 times. He's just the team is not helping him out. His receivers aren't helping him out. Although Darnell Mooney did step up for the first time this year, but other than Mooney, like there's no one else that he can kind of rely on, and I think that is part of the problem. And then the other thing is, like, once they get into the red zone, they've got to find a way to get touchdowns. They're just kicking field goals. They're not an efficient offense. So a lot needs to change on the offense, but we knew that the Bears were probably going to be one of the worst teams in NFL this year, and they're certainly playing like it. They found ways to win last 3 weeks, but it just did not come to fruition against the Giants.
Yeah, 2 fluky teams going at it. One of the fluky teams was bound to lose. Justin Fields is nothing to take home, right? He might have like sparks of running efficiency that you see at times, but at the end of the day, there's 32 starting quarterbacks, and he is nowhere near even at the midpoint of the top 32 quarterbacks in the league. So there's a lot of work to be done there.
Yeah, I love how this note autocorrected Tyrod Taylor's name to Tyrosine Taylor. That's hilarious. But what's funny about Justin Fields, guys?
It's racist.
Justin Fields has 34 completions this year, and he also has 34 rushing attempts. Justin Fields has 34 completions this year. Cooper Kupp has 42 receptions this year. I mean, just let that sink. Cooper Kupp has 8 more receptions than Justin Fields has completions. It's absolutely wild, the lack of anything that offense has been able to basically not do. It's incredible. I mean, it's actually incredible. At least they get a good matchup against the Vikings defense this upcoming week. So if Fields wants to look decent, there's a good week to do it. But even against the Vikings defense now, I'm convinced that like Fields is just not going to be able to get the job done. Their offensive line is atrocious. They're atrocious. Their offensive line is so bad. They picked up Dakota Dozier, a guy that was literally a revolving door for us on our offensive line last year, and we cut him, and they picked him up to start him. So like they are in all sorts of shambles. Again, every week that transpires, I am further and further off of this Justin Fields train because, again, it's one thing if he's doing everything that he possibly can, but nothing is happening around him. But like the things he can control, he still isn't doing well. So again, it's very, very sad to see. They thought he was going to be the quarterback of the future, and right now he doesn't even look like the quarterback that's going to make it through the whole season. That takes us to Monsoon Light is what I like to call this game. The Jaguars at Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. We already had the Monsoon game in week 1. This is Monsoon Light. It was raining and so windy. Eagles favored by 6.5 points at home, covered that spread in the Monsoon, and the over 46 cashed in Monsoon. Why? The Jags had 5 fumbles. 4 of them lost. The turnover battle difference, Jags lost 5 turnovers to Philadelphia's 1. Hurts finally looks human for the first time, only 204 yards passing. No touchdowns, did throw an interception, wasn't very efficient running the football, 16 for 38 and a touchdown, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter because Miles Sanders stole the show. 27 carries, 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. A.J. Brown did good things, 5 for 95. Goddard was relevant, 5 for 72. The other side, Trevor Lawrence, maybe not his best game. Again, the weather was really bad. 11 for 23, 174 yards, 2 touchdowns, did throw an interception. Not much to write home about with the running backs. I know Robinson had been looking nice for a couple of weeks now, but this week, both running backs had 8 carries for 29 and 32 yards respectively. And receivers, Christian Kirk, 2 for 60. Jamal Agnew, once a year, twice a year. This guy is good for some crazy plays that make you wonder maybe why this guy isn't a full-time receiver. Maybe why this guy isn't on the field a little bit more. 4 catches, 50 yards. 2 of those were for touchdowns. So I think it's interesting here. A couple of things. Jags sticking with the Eagles. I think, again, the Jags are on the up and up. They could have won this game. They had a chance. Obviously, the weather dictated a lot of things. And on the other side, the Eagles playing one of the ugliest football games they've played against an up-and-coming Jags team and still being resilient and getting the job done. So the Eagles are the early season NFC favorites here. having the best record and the number 1 seed in the NFC. And again, for the Jags, you probably want to win every game. Obviously, there's no such thing as consolation prizes, but against arguably one of the best teams in the NFL right now, to keep it within 1 score on the road in the monsoon, I'd say, not all is lost in Jacksonville.
Next up, we have the Jets at the Steelers. Oh my God, this game was so much fun to watch. I think Chauvin enjoyed this game more than any of us. Unfortunately, the outcome didn't work out, but the excitement level was there. Final score 24-20. Jets take the dub here. The over hit at 41.5. Man, sophomore versus rookie. It was, a battle for the ages, as nobody would say. Wilson versus Pickett, man. Pickett with 3 picks. It was not all of us on Pickett. One of them was off of somebody's hands. One of them was on him. And one was a Hail Mary. Just kind of, it all adds up as 3 picks on the stat sheet, unfortunately. But the offense did move the ball statistically better with Pickett than with Trubisky, only by 1 yard efficiency-wise. I think it was like 5 yards a play, like 4.7 yards a play to 5 yards a play or something along those lines. Sample size really low, not significant, but still something to note. It wasn't a convincing win for Wilson, but he did just enough. When I say it wasn't convincing, it was because he played like shit at times. When he was pressured, he completed 2 passes out of 12 passes when pressured, right? I mean, they knew what to do. Steelers knew what to do, and it just go towards the, quote, rookie, unquote, because, he plays like shit. He's just not there yet. That's going to happen. That's going to happen. You're going to get pressured in the NFL, especially with 2 of your linemen that were supposed to be, making their next step or doing something in this league when both of them get injured for a prolonged period of time. And Wilson hasn't had much practice. It's been 4 weeks into the league, and they're like, here, go against the Steelers defense. So it wasn't a good situation, but he made it happen. And I think that's what really matters here. It's 2 quarterbacks that kind of just had to make things happen in situations they didn't really want to be in. And one of them came out on top. Najee Harris, something to note, 18 carries. I mean, Rashard Penny would take 18 carries and turn that into 200 yards. But he ended up with 24 yards here. And that's not even the bad part. It's a bad Jets defense. You expect a little bit more out of Najee. But the fact that he got no pass attempts, that's the part that's telling. That's the part, you have a rookie quarterback who doesn't really know where to go with the ball. You would think there would be times where they would, figure out some plays to give the ball to Najee Harris in the open field. And they didn't really do that. I expect that to change like dramatically. That was a really big blunder on Mike Tomlin or whoever's calling the plays part. That's just foolish at this point. Running backs on the other end, Michael Carter played a really shitty game, 9 carries for 15 yards. He is an afterthought at this point. He's basically a handcuff. If Breece Hall, who is the actual starter, gets hurt, he basically played a pretty bad game too. He ended up getting 66 yards rushing, but he ended up stumbling into the end zone to make his day look a little bit brighter. But, people that are watching the game know that he didn't really have a good game. But he got targeted 6 times, and people watching the game know that that means everything from a fantasy perspective. 6 targets can take you anywhere. And he ended up catching only 2 of those. So still a bad experience overall, but the potential is there. And the potential is what we want to ride when we're talking this early in the season. 6 targets, being a workhorse running back on top of that. These are good things. There's good things to come for Breece Hall. And another thing to note, it's finally Pickens' time. George Pickens, 100+ yards on 8 targets. He caught 6 of those. He probably would have caught all 8 of those if there was anywhere remotely around him. I love this guy. He's going to be a great wide receiver for many, many years to come. Just keep giving him the ball. And I think the Steelers are slowly understanding that. Just put the ball near him. You've seen what he can do when the ball is anywhere near him. Just get the ball near him, and I think that's going to be something they're going to enforce heavily. So on my rookie wide receivers that I'm looking forward to, Pickens has jumped that the pedestal, I guess, pretty significantly higher. Some of these other only players that are ahead of him are probably Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and now Romeo Doubs. And then Pickens would be number 4. I'm not looking at anybody else. Nobody else entices me as much as these 4 people. They're in the perfect spot to take number 1 roles. Freiermuth, cannot ignore him. He is there. There are 3 really good tight ends in the league, but Freiermuth is creeping his way up with these 9 targets and making the most of them. To be considered as a number 5 or number 6, maybe a number 4. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. If this rookie quarterback is here to stay, which we presume he will be, we are going to see a lot more of Freiermuth. That's just how things work. Look at the statistics. It all points towards rookie quarterbacks throwing to tight ends a lot. So things are only going to look better for Freiermuth. Let's just hope Najee Harris can figure something else out there, because I am liking what I'm seeing from the backup there in the open field. He looks like a little turtle. He looks like a little turtle with fast legs. So that's all I got for this game. You guys have anything to add here?
When the moment I knew I was done with Trubisky was when he threw it sideline throw to Pickens, and it was just not high enough where only Pickens could grab it. I was like, okay, we've seen it all. Like this is we're done. And sure enough, second half rolls up, and it's like, wow, that's like all my prayers were answered. And we may lose all of our games this year, but we'll lose with hope that there's a chance to win. So
and small hands.
And some small hands, big hands, whatever.
Small hands, big hopes.
Yeah, small. Yeah, a lot riding on these hands, man. I don't know if there's enough circumference to take on all the pressure that the land of Pittsburgh is going to ensue. But it is, the future is bright. Anytime anything is uncertain and there's uncertainty, you can look at it in a way that it could be bright. So I totally. And again, Shovit, the thing we talked about last episode. Is Mike Tomlin going to wait too long to make a change? The dude literally made a change quicker than I think you and I both expected him to. So I think, again, Mike Tomlin is the epitome of a guy that's not going to sit around and watch his team go 1-5, 1-6, 1-7 before he makes a change.
I mean, he might not sit around, but he might stand around and see 1-7 happen, because the next 4 games on that schedule is the worst schedule you can think of.
Bad.
The worst.
It's really bad. But
if you can come out on top against the Bills, against the Eagles, the Dolphins, I mean, hey, there's one more team that's really tough that I can't remember right now, but yeah, that would be amazing. All right, next up, we've got the Buffalo Bills at Ravens. The final score was 23-20. The over-under was at 51, and that was not hit. Under, again, just like the theme of this year. So this is a tale of two halves, right? I thought the Ravens were going to come out and win this game after seeing their performance, after seeing Lamar Jackson in the first quarter and pretty much all the second quarter. But the Bills, they came back. They had Josh Allen was a different guy in the second half, and there were some very key drives that allowed them to come back. A 74-yard drive to make it 20-10 late in the second quarter, and then they scored again in the second half, and it was 20-20. And there was a drive where the Ravens were in the red zone, 4th and 2, and instead of kicking the field goal, Harbaugh decides to go for it, and Lamar Jackson gets intercepted. And I think that's kind of like, if that's not the deciding factor, I mean, I don't know what is. Like, it's a very bold, and if the Bills come back, Josh Allen probably scores a touchdown there anyways. But you definitely want to. I think you definitely need the points there because the final score was 23-20. And given that the Bills, how they struggled last week in the red zone to end the game with the Miami Dolphins, and Josh Allen had that throw that just hit the ground, and they weren't able to win the game. You've kind of trust your defense just a little bit there, but he didn't, and the Bills come out on top. Some things to know: J.K. Dobbins, 2 touchdowns finally. Although we didn't see J.K. Dobbins in the fourth quarter, so to me it's like, well, is he injured, or are they just trying to conserve him because of the rain, trying to make sure that he doesn't get more injured? I don't know what's going on there. Just something to monitor. But yeah, Bills come out, beat the Ravens in a surprising fashion, and hopefully that jumpstarts their season after coming from a loss.
One thing to add, I am all for the going forward on 4th and 2nd. I used to give a lot of shit to the Chargers last year. I remember, because I'm kind of old fashioned when it comes to, like, I play a lot of like chess match football instead of like numbers football. But I've switched that side of me drastically. I go for every 2-point conversion now. I don't kick extra points. That thing is of the past. And the reason I say this is because, all analytics. If you watch the Harbaugh interview after the game, he talked about how the numbers favored going for it. All signs pointed to going for it and ending it now, rather than putting your hands on this defense, which has been pretty poor. Let's not forget how bad this defense was playing. It's played pretty good when they made the pick, and they played pretty good this game. They really did. But overall, it's better to have the best player in the league have the ball with 2 yards to go than to put the hands on a bunch of people that you don't really trust as much. And the problem that I have with this play isn't the fact that they went for it. The problem I have is that they decided to do a play where he takes the ball and walks, takes a few steps backwards when all you need to do is go forwards for 2 yards. This is something you have to organize and talk with your team that this isn't going to be a long-standing play that takes time to develop where the quarterback needs to take 10 steps backwards. That's where they went wrong. He saw the pressure come off the side, and instead of making a lateral movement, which he was better than any quarterback in this league to make, maybe not better than Kyler Murray, but you don't go backwards that many times when you need to go 2 yards forwards on your last play. It was a blunder on Lamar Jackson's part, but who are we to sit here and criticize? But that is why this play didn't end up going this to their favor, and this is why the Ravens lost, is because Lamar Jackson had a lapse in judgment and just took too much time going backwards, not realizing that the pressure is coming from both ends.
Yeah, I agree in the sense of going for it. Like you said, it's the situation dictates everything, right? You have a guy like Josh Allen on the other side with that porous defense. You're probably expecting if you kick a field goal that at worst they're going to get a field goal. At best, they'll probably score a touchdown. But the fact that the game ended 23-20 is more of a dictation on the fact that the Bills knew they only needed a field goal, so they could just work with the clock, milk the clock, make sure the Ravens don't get the ball back and then kick the field goal. But I think, again, if you have a guy as dynamic as Lamar Jackson and you need 2 yards, I'm probably going to go for it like 10 out of 10 times. But you're spot on, Shisho. They should have ran like a read option or something that was going to push forward as opposed to having Lamar have to take multiple steps back when you're needing 2 yards. The next game on the board, the Houston Texans were hosting the LA Chargers. Chargers came into this as road favorites by 5 points. They cover that spread over 44 cashes. They win the game 34-24 final. Herbie Herbert looks fully loaded, 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. This was the running back show, though, of the game. Austin Eckler finally shows out, finally gives fantasy owners something to be excited about. 13 carries, 60 yards, 2 touchdowns, caught 6 balls for 49 yards and a touchdown. And Dameon Pierce coming out party, 75-yard touchdown run, 14 carries, and a very efficient 131 yards on the ground. The other thing to note, though not efficient, he caught 6 passes for 8 yards. So I know Rex Burkhead was there. Rex Burkhead caught a touchdown pass as well. But the fact that Pierce is catching 6 balls bodes really, really well for Pierce owners that he is not just a running back. He can also catch passes from the backfield. Mike Williams stays producing 7 for 120. Gerald Everett seems to be a really nice tight end find for the Chargers, 5 for 61 and a touchdown. And all Brandon Cooks does show of it is continues to produce 7 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown. Another week where Brandon Cooks probably is fantasy relevant. So Chargers take this one on the road as we all expected. Texans stick around late due to Dameon Pierce's emergence.
All right, Cardinals at Panthers is what we're going to talk about next. Cardinals took care of business here, 26-16. Arizona was plus 1.5. The under hit at 43.5. Cardinals, they didn't do very well the first few quarters. They had a total of 10 points scored the first 3 quarters total. And in the fourth quarter, they just kind of erupted with 16 points. This kind of efficiency is not something I like. I don't like seeing teams just having to come from behind to win. Like when you want to make a statement in this league, you kind of have to take care of teams like the Panthers. Albeit they do have a slightly, above average defense. But come on, Kyler Murray, you have your weapons. You got your starting running back there. You have all these people emerging at wide receivers. You got to make these third down conversions. There was just not enough firepower early in the game. They did end up figuring that out though. Cardinals are now 2-2. Panthers are now 1-3. And one thing I learned from this game is Hollywood Brown has figured it out. He's now a must start. It doesn't matter. There's 3 spots on your roster, right? Sweetheart, do you see a world where you don't start him moving forward?
Just based on volume alone, it seems very improbable. I had him in my lineup up until Sunday, and then I switched to Mike Williams, which having the luxury of having so my receivers are what? Mike Williams, T. Higgins, and I forget who my number 1 receiver is. Why am I drawing a blank right now? Who's my number 1 receiver? But nonetheless, yeah, Debo. Yeah. So, Debo, Higgins, and Mike Williams and Hollywood Brown, it's kind of like outside of Debo, maybe all those guys are interchangeable. But, yeah, I don't think most people are going to have the luxury of having 4 receivers of that caliber. But based on Hollywood Brown's targets alone, the amount of balls that are being thrown his way, it is impossible for you to not start Hollywood Brown.
Absolutely. Another thing I need to mention is Frankie Louvu, who is now the best player on IDP football. He has double-digit tackles a lot of the games. He also had a pick 6 today, and he had a tackle for loss. That was a monstrous pickup by my opponent, who also picked up TJ Hawkinson. James Conner will not go away. He is here to stay. He did not score a touchdown, who we always deem as a touchdown-dependent running back, but he still ended up getting 10 fantasy points in PPR. He's a must start. If you have him on your team, there's very little chance you're going to have somebody better than James Conner as your RB2, so you're going to be starting him every day. CMC, I was really excited at how he was running the ball because I was going against him. 8 rushes for 27 yards. I was just happy, putting my legs up, and all of a sudden, they start throwing the CMC. He was thrown to 9 times. He caught all 9 balls, and he got a receiving touchdown in the middle of the end zone towards the end of the game, which ended my potential dub this week. DJ Moore getting involved. It looks like they're making a point to get the ball to him. Not sure why they didn't do this from the beginning. I think this is a perfect opportunity to buy low. This is probably one of the best buy low candidates I can see in football right now. There's no way the Panthers don't realize the ball needs to go near this man after 4 games. The targets are coming. You can just take it to the bank. The targets are coming. There's probably very little that you need to trade for him. The average fantasy football player will get rid of DJ Moore if you ask him nicely. So, give him something minimal, like somebody that has just done well recently. And people will gladly give you DJ Moore. So I suggest people go out there and grab him.
Awesome. So next up, we've got New England Patriots at the Green Bay Packers. The final score was 24-27 Packers. And Packers come out with a win here, but it wasn't easy for them. First half, Aaron Rodgers went 4 for 11 for 44 yards and had a pick 6. So he was doing all the wrong things to allow the Patriots to be competitive. The spread was at 9.5. Favoring the Packers, and that did not come into fruition there. And so good things from the Packers. I just want to mention that A-Rod did have his 500th touchdown in the second half, and I believe that was to Romeo Doubs, who is that guy, he's another rookie this year that is playing very well. Allen Lazard definitely had a better game, but Doubs almost came out with 2 touchdowns. If he didn't have that drop in the end zone late in the fourth quarter, I believe, that would have been 2 touchdowns, a solid fantasy game. But he did come up with a touchdown, so good for him there. The thing we need to talk about is Bailey Zapp, guy that comes in for Brian Hoyer. And Bailey Zapp, they didn't really utilize him as much. I think that the game script was to run the ball because the Packers have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, and run the ball they did heavily. But I think Bailey Zapp played okay. At times he was a little bit erratic when he first kind of started throwing the ball on the ground and things like that, but kind of got into the groove. He had an opportunity to come back and win the game for the Packers, and that did not end up happening. Packers did, like I mentioned, come out on top. But you have guys like Aaron Jones, who had solid game, 16 carries for 110 yards. AJ Dillon, 17 carries, 73 yards. So solid game from everyone on that offense. The Patriots just weren't able to come through when it mattered at the end of the game. And maybe Bailey Zapp in the future will have a better game, but not to end it, but not this game.
You think Aaron Rodgers is going to let a guy named Bailey Zapp coming to play for the first time in his life beat him? Just not happening.
Yeah. Bailey Zapp, I saw a meme that Bailey Zapp looks like a guy that would play Mac Jones in an Alabama show. They do look kind of similar.
They do look very similar. They look very similar. But yeah, I think that the big thing is Romeo Doubs had a nice game, but he was 1 drop touchdown in the end zone away from being like, holy shit, like this guy had an impressive game. And all of a sudden he is Aaron Rodgers' number 1 receiver right now. And so, like you said, Shisho, having Aaron Rodgers number 1 receiver in fantasy football every year. That's
Devontae Adams.
Every year that Rodgers has been in the NFL has been phenomenal, whether it's Adams, whether it's Jordy Nelson, whether it's Greg Jennings, whoever it was producing as a number 1 receiver for Aaron Rodgers. So Romeo Doubs, a young receiver here early on, is showing that he wants to be that guy. That takes us to the Denver Broncos, who traveled to Vegas to take on the Raiders in this divisional matchup. Raiders at home, favored by 2.5 points, over under 45.5. Raiders cover that spread and win the game 32-23 over cashes. Russ did cook a little bit here. I'd say he probably cooked a little bit of appetizers in terms of what he's done so far this year. 237 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, did have 4 carries for 29 yards and ran 1 in. Obviously, the story of the game, Javonte Williams is done for the season. Melvin Ingram also got hurt and hobbled up in this game. So Mike Boone came in, dropped a really important pass that would have helped me probably win fantasy football. So pissed off about that, Mike Boone. But I don't know if long-term Mike Boone's going to be an answer or not. Melvin Gordon, more than likely, if he can play, will be the guy for you to have. Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton had next to identical performances, 4 for 53 and a touchdown, 5 for 52 and a touchdown. And Derek Carr is officially mid at best. I mean, dude, you won the game and you still had a horrible game. The name of the game was Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs had the best game of his entire life. 28 carries, 144 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Caught 5 balls for 31 yards. Devontae Adams did still get his 9 for 101. Didn't find the end zone. I think the difference in this game, the reason the Broncos weren't able to win and the Raiders capitalized, third down conversions. Raiders were 7 of 14 on third down. Broncos 3 of 11. So they were struggling to sustain drives. They couldn't mount that comeback at the end. And their defense, man, could not stop Josh Jacobs running the football. It was insanity how big these holes were. The Broncos defense, the Broncos team as a whole continues to be an enigma. We've expected great things from this team. They've been brought back down to earth. Vegas brought them down to earth, making them underdogs against a Vegas team, which I thought was asinine. But the fact that Vegas covered goes to show that ultimately maybe the Broncos are not who we thought they were.
Okay. This kicks it off to Sunday Night Football. We had the Chiefs go to the Buccaneers land and take care of some business. 41-13 was the final score. Man, let's start with Lenny. Let's start with Lenny and what Lenny does, right? Lenny does what he does. He takes the ball and he runs with the ball, catches the ball sometimes, and he's Tom Brady's favorite target. Another thing I noticed is he takes breaks. There's something of note just from if you have to start Lenny versus somebody else. This is I'm being very pinpointy at this point, but you know how like Aaron Jones and these other split carry situations where people don't just take over full drives. People take over for 6-7 plays, and there's a timeout. The new guy, the guy that originally supposed to be there comes back in. I.e., the Chiefs do that a lot. The Packers do that a lot. But Lenny doesn't do that. Lenny has probably in his contract where, you play this drive, you take this drive off. No matter the situation, Lenny doesn't come in. And that means goal line situations. So as much as we love Lenny in goal line situations, there is a really good chance he won't come in when it's 4th and 1, no matter the situation. Obviously, this isn't like quantifiable. I can't go on the internet and show you that this is where I learned the data. But it's an eye test. And I'm noticing that even with a good running back like Lenny, he sits out whole drives. He will not come in, even though the direness of the situation. If he's not coming in that drive, he's not coming in that drive. Another thing here is the receivers look like they're healthy. Julio Jones, not sure, but maybe that's because he's number 4 on this depth chart, and I think it's pretty clear at this point, unless the injury is still there. So me saying that basically means give Julio Jones one more week. Don't drop him unless there's better options, unless we're talking about the players that we talked about early on this podcast. If you need Nyheim Hines, drop Julio Jones. If you're going to pick up some random person who you think is going to go off that has not shown any signs of going off, do not drop Julio Jones because we don't know if it's because he's 4th or if he's actually still hurt. So don't make that mistake. Hold on to him. But it's pretty clear Godwin is back. Godwin is going to be used. It's up to you to decide on his fragility. Me personally, I don't feel comfortable putting him out there just yet. I need more evidence. And by the time I wait for evidence, I have Hopkins coming back in every single league. So I may be putting up for trade sometime this week. So think about those things. These are the players that you can maneuver around with. These are the players that make fantasy football fun. Another thing here is the Chiefs. It just seems like a theme every year. The Chiefs have this weakness. The Chiefs do this. The Chiefs do that. Nobody does what the Chiefs do. Josh Allen wants to be Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes will never want to be Josh Allen ever in his life. And let's make it clear. This offense is unstoppable. Now they're showing dominance with CEH running the ball, getting close to 100 yards. They're using all kinds of running backs at the goal line. It is unpredictable beyond belief. He'll even shoot a basketball free throw to his running backs in the end zone. Like, this whole situation is chaotic. I would not want to go against this team. I don't care what the defense is. They're going to drop 41 plus points. When the Chiefs catch fire, there is no solution to it. They're going to continue catching on fire unless they lose their own players or Mahomes plays bad. Good luck hoping for that. CEH, while this game was going on, prior to the last 4 games, if you just take not the last 4 games, prior to this game, the first 3 games, if you look at CEH's numbers, you're like, man, this is the luckiest running back in the league. Well, that has been put to that has been put aside. Now he's clearly getting the targets. He's going to be getting the targets, and they're going to be leading in games. He's going to be getting the rushes. I can't believe I'm saying this, but this may be somebody you try to get from somebody else. I know what you're thinking. You're like, CEH is number 4 in fantasy this year in running backs. He's not a buy low candidate. He's a sell high candidate. Yeah, true, but not everybody that owns CEH knows football. And the people that actually know football are the ones you target here. Isn't it amazing how all this shit works? It's the people that know CEH that you can take CEH from. It's not the people that don't know football that you can't take it from. You can't take them from those guys. Those guys just look at the numbers. People that truly know CEH and the volatility that he has, those are the people you target. So go after all your top 3 players in your league and look to see if they have CEH and ask for a trade. I will guarantee you they will actually be interested if you don't put something stupid out there. Anything else you guys noticed in this game?
No, I think you're spot on with the CEH assessment, right? I mean, the start to his season is actually kind of unreal just in terms of how many touchdowns he scored. So it's not sustainable in the long run. That's why, like you said, you can't trade him with somebody who only is going to look at what he's done in terms of fantasy points and doesn't actually watch the game, because they're going to be like, this guy's putting up like 15 plus points a week. Why would I trade him? But the people that know to trade him know that, again, he's not going to score 1 touchdown every week. He's not going to score 2 touchdowns every other week. And watching the game, they use Jerick McKinnon a good amount of times. They use Isaiah Pacheco a good amount of times.
In the goal line, especially in the goal line.
Yeah, and they literally use a backup tight end as a quarterback to quarterback sneak. They use end arounds to flip it to Kelsey, to Hardman. Like, there's so many mouths to feed there that they find different ways to beat you. So this is not long-term sustainable points per CEH. It sucks, if you had to play against him one of these first 4 weeks like you did this week's show, because again, I don't think he's going to maintain this level of production. So yeah, if you're going to trade him to somebody who is only going to look at his numbers and you have him, you can probably get a haul for him because he's RB4 through 4 weeks and he's put up double-digit points. But if you're going to go out and get him from somebody who is still on the fence about CEH because they understand football and they realize that the volume is not there. So the volume versus the amount of opportunities he's going to get, it's just not going to correlate into a touchdown every single week.
Yes. Show me, were you going to say something?
Not related to CEH, so I'll let you finish the thought.
Yeah, I was just saying, if you do want him on your team, I don't think it's the worst idea. I think you can go out and get him on your team. However, be cognizant that you're not going to give up a lot for this guy. You can still get him for cheap is what I'm trying to say. You can get rid of him for a huge haul, and you can still get him for cheap. That's the enigma of fantasy football. It's somebody who's ranked number 4 in running backs right now, and you can use him in any way you like.
Yeah. One thing I was like watching about this game was the Buccaneers offense. And because I have Tom Brady, because I have Leonard Fournette, I'm like trying to figure out like what to do with these guys, right? Leonard Fournette kind of scares me. So a guy like Rachaad White is someone I would be looking at to keep on my bench just in case something happens to Leonard Fournette. I think Rachaad White would be a complimentary guy. But this team looks completely different with Godwin, with Julio Jones, and with like Mike Evans out there, right? If those 3 guys are there, like you've got to be confident about Tom Brady and starting Tom Brady, especially next week when they play against the Falcons. So I think that this game just allowed that offense to kind of be better, like put up 31 points. I mean, against the Kansas City Chiefs, that's a pretty big deal, even though you come out with the loss. So I think if I'm looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, I'm a little bit more excited to start them and more like just feeling better about starting them as opposed to like the last 3 weeks.
How do you feel about Tom Brady getting a divorce from his witch wife?
That's just, it sucks for him, but I'm not gonna let that tie into.
I mean that in the best way. I mean that in the best way, by the way, because we've talked about this before and we don't have to go down that road. Yeah. But she plays a direct role in his success. She plays a direct role in success. And I'm not one to believe in heebie-jeebies, but I am all about heebie-jeebies when it comes to me getting dubs in fantasy football. And there's a direct correlation. Look at the statistics. And I don't know if I can prove it, but the proof is in the pudding, and we're just going to have to see what happens.
if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a Dudley game against the Atlanta Falcons next week, then I will be more in line with the.
Oh, it's bigger than just one game. Don't get out of here. We're talking season-ending injuries. We're talking losing by 1 point situations. It's about to be bad.
Yeah. One final note I'll add to that is Tom Brady, like you said, it is nice to see the offense flowing a little bit more, so you feel better about starting him. I still think that the problem wasn't necessarily the weapons. The problem is more so his offensive line. So when he has easy matchups, I'd still do your due diligence just to see if it's going to be a run heavy game, because again, I think they're going to do what they can to preserve Tom Brady for the long haul. So I don't think it's going to be one of those where he's going to be airing out for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns every week. I think against teams that they can exploit the run, they're going to try to run the football as much as possible and preserve Tom Brady's health, just because the offensive line is not what it was last year. So I think you definitely feel better about playing him if it's going to be like a team that doesn't have a great defense that's expected to put up points. So it's going to be a shootout, and then he'll throw the football. But if he's playing against like the Texans, and you know that Leonard Fournette can probably run it 25 times for like 150 yards and dictate the game, then they may win. Brady may have an efficient game, but there may still be better fantasy quarterbacks that you could start.
Yeah, that seems fair. All right. Next up, last game on the board, we've got the Los Angeles Rams at the San Francisco 49ers. The final score was 9-24. The 49ers come out on top there. This game was just tragic for the Rams, and it was a lot like the Bills game the first week of the season, where Matthew Stafford was getting hit left and right, pressured all over the place. He couldn't even get his timing right with any of his receivers, not named Cooper Kupp or Tyler Higbee. And that was the reason why the 49ers came out on top here. Matthew Stafford only likes to target Cooper Kupp and Higbee. It just blows my mind. There's like Allen Robinson is like Waldo right now. Like, it's like, where's Waldo? And Allen Robinson is playing it because you can't find him anywhere. They try to get him the ball, and it's just to no luck. They try to throw it deep in the red zone late to get a touchdown, and I don't think. It's not that he's not getting separation, because when he comes off the line, it does seem like he's getting a little bit of jump. But, Stafford just doesn't look that way. Maybe they need to have breakfast together or something a little bit more. But
Allen Robinson is notorious, Shovit. So since he's come into the league, he has one of the worst separations from cornerbacks in the NFL. But that's not what Allen Robinson is. Allen Robinson is a throw the ball up, like in a jump ball situation, contested catch. That's the kind of receiver Allen Robinson is. But the problem is, like you said, every play is designed to not look his way, right? Like I was watching the game last night, not even having Allen Robinson, but he's on the field like 100% of the plays. So it's like such a horrible sense of hope, like false sense of hope for fantasy fans, because he's on the field every play. But every single play, Matthew Stafford, the minute he hikes the ball, he looks the other way. Like his initial read is always on the other side of the field where Robinson isn't. And then they get into the red zone. They give Allen Robinson one goal line fade. It's a bad throw. It's overthrown. It's like, oh, Allen Robinson didn't catch that, so we're going to ignore him for the rest of the game. So I do not understand this Allen Robinson enigma. Again, could it be the fact that Cooper Kupp is open every play? Probably.
They're racist.
I mean, he throws it to Cooper Kupp. He throws it to Higbee. And then the one guy that sparingly gets targets is Ben Skoranek. What do all those guys have in common? They all
Anglo-Saxons.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it is so weird that there are no play designs for Robinson. There are no, like, Robinson is the first read plays. At least I'm not seeing that, because, like you said, I was visually looking for plays where Stafford would look at Robinson first, and then if he wasn't open, maybe go to a second read. But I did not see a single time besides that goal line fade that was overthrown where he looked at Robinson first. So it is such an enigma. You would think an offensive mastermind like Sean McVay would be able to figure this out. But through 4 weeks, Allen Robinson continues to be the afterthought.
The magic of week 4. You guys ready? Last year, exact same thing happened with Robert Woods. Exact same thing happened with Robert Woods. And then something turned around, and then he was targeted heavily after that. So do we still wait and hope? I don't know. Not me. I'll watch it happen on someone else's bench, but I don't want any part of this.
Yeah, I mean, he's sitting on my bench, just kind of chilling with like 1 points per game.
Why is he on your bench?
It's like
just keeping it warm.
Keeping it warm, I guess. No, I mean, with the waivers this week, he may not be on my bench. We'll see. But I think the 49ers played a great game on both sides. Garoppolo was good enough, and he got the ball to his receiver, Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel had a sick catch and got the long touchdown. So I think that helped out. And then Jeff Wilson only had 2 attempts at one point of the game and for 30 yards, but one of the attempts was a rushing touchdown. So we got production on the offensive side definitely put the points on the board, and they were able to come out with the final score of 24. And then you got Polamalu, aka Talanoa Hufanga, aka Polamalu, also went to USC. The guy's got the hair like USC. I think when his season's over, Head and Shoulders will probably hire him and make him the next Polamalu. The guy plays like Polamalu. He got their pick 6 for the touchdown for the 49ers as well. So great play on defense and allowed the 49ers to dominate the Rams, who really had no answer.
49ers still looking like a complete team, man. Like you said, the 49ers get Jimmy G back through like a bad way in a sense, because that's not what they wanted. And all of a sudden this team is like back to being this team that went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, went to the NFC Championship last year, and they have the same team this year, basically. So there's no reason to believe this isn't a team that is equally a threat again in the NFC, with the defense, with obviously Kyle Shanahan, with the Debos, and with Jimmy G just doing enough. All he needs to do is enough, and that's what he seems to do. He just helps them win football games somehow.
Yeah, it's the Eagles.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. The
defensive coordinator, that I forget his name, but that guy is probably going to be a head coach next year. Like, doing a phenomenal job.
He interviewed for
Vikings.
Raheem Morris, maybe, is that his name? Or D'Amico Ryans?
No, D'Amico Ryans. Yeah, he declined the Vikings head coach job, which I'm very thankful for. But what I was going to say is, it's the Eagles, it's the 49ers. And is it the Minnesota Vikings in the NFC? Is that how the ranking system is right now? I don't know. Maybe the Dallas Cowboys up there somewhere, but the offense is still a little volatile.
Green Bay Packers.
See. Maybe, but we just whooped their last week one, so it's hard to put them above us.
Yeah, we got the tiebreaker. So until they beat us back, like we can assume that if we're tied, we're going to obviously be ahead of them. But it is interesting early in the season, right? Again, 4 weeks in, 17-week season now. It's way too early. We've seen the Vikings go 8-0 and miss the playoffs. So nothing is out of
8-0 then 0-8.
Exactly. Nothing is out of the realm of possibility for football. But that is it for the rundown, guys. Let's jump into our awards. I am always so graced with the fact that I get to go first so that my award never gets stolen. So I am going to start us off and give out the Jonathan Taylor Award. Any guesses at who that's going to? No guesses?
No idea.
Jonathan Taylor. I'm just going to go on a limb.
The Jonathan Taylor Award goes to Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs does his best Jonathan Taylor impression from last year, having an insane game, 28 carries, 144 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I had this guy last year. I had Jonathan Taylor this year. Seems like, the roles have been reversed, at least for 1 week. Jonathan Taylor has had all of his talent stolen, apparently, and now he's getting hurt. And it seems like somebody in Vegas may have stolen it, at least for 1 week anyway. So Josh Jacobs has the game of his life. I shit on this guy all day, all year last year. And then I draft Jonathan Taylor, and Jonathan Taylor shits the bed, and Josh Jacobs rubs it in my face. So 28 carries, 144 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs earns my Jonathan Taylor Award.
All right. That was great. All right. So my award for this week is Give Me My Quarterback Award. Any guesses?
I do have a guess.
Go ahead.
Jalen Hurts.
No. Or tell me your reasoning for that guess.
Oh, you just had Jalen Hurts last year, and now you don't have him, so you want your quarterback.
Oh, that's actually way better than what I was my answer. But yeah,
he's like audible. I'm actually gonna go.
Cut that off. Let's start over.
I don't have a guess. Is it a quarterback? It's a quarterback though.
I can't say those things. That's part of why this is good.
God damn it! Give me my quarterback. Give me my quarterback. I don't think it's a quarterback. Give me my quarterback. It's a player that's not benefiting right now because their quarterback is not playing, maybe. So I don't know the answer, but that's my train of thought.
All right. The answer is Rashad Penny, because we out here with pennies. Give me my quarterbacks. Here is Rashad Penny for the world to see. Okay. 17 carries, 151 rushing yards, average 8.9 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns, 1 reception for 6 yards. This man just stays getting ripped off his whole career. Just let him have the number 1 role. And it's not that hard to figure out. Other times, he's averaged 5 yards per carry when given the opportunity. When he gets more than 10 carries a game, they tend to win those games. It's not that hard to figure out. Give the ball to Rashad Penny, make Walker wait a little bit longer, maybe learn from these explosive moves, and just we'll all rest in peace after Walker takes over next year. But let Penny have his season, please.
Penny's a stud. He deserves all the carries.
All right. So mine is a Proper Gentleman Award.
The purple or proper?
You can go either way. Proper.
Proper gentleman.
Proper.
Yeah.
No, it's proper. He's saying proper with a British accent. It's proper.
Or attempting to say proper.
Yeah, or attempting. Proper Gentleman Award. The proper gentleman. This is coming out of left field. I'm going to go with...
What's someone's last name that's like good, or like someone's last name that's like...
I'm going to guess Kenny Pickett.
No, it's not.
I'm going to guess somebody that spread the ball evenly to all of his wide receivers.
Okay. So, are you going to name the person?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. So, the person is Senor Jefe, Justin Jefferson. The reason why he's a proper gentleman is because, they go down to London, the proper gentleman, as well, hence the accent, and comes out with 10 receptions on 147 yards. Solid fantasy game. In my PPR league, he had 32 points. So, going overseas and just kicking some booty, he is Mr. Proper Gentleman.
It's nice to be a wide receiver, isn't it? You don't get rigged for any of your mistakes, and you just get praised for all of your good things.
Yeah. I can't relate, but I'm sure it is.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. It sucks being quarterback. You get the praise and you get the grunt of all the blame. It's the hardest position in football. Proper gentleman. Very good. So my game ball this week goes to the future quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks. It goes to Geno Smith. Geno Smith has officially earned himself a contract in Seattle through 4 games. This guy has been unreal. Everything that they could have hoped he would be, and times that by 1,000 maybe, because I think there was talk that there was a quarterback competition in Seattle coming into the season with Drew Lock and Geno Smith. And I'm pretty sure Geno Smith took offense to the fact that anybody would think somebody would need to compete with a guy like Drew Lock who can't, throw a football basically and accurately. So I think Geno Smith had a phenomenal week. He's continued to produce. He's made the rest of his team fantasy relevant, which coming in, everybody was hesitant to draft Lockett. Everybody was hesitant to draft DK. And all of a sudden he's making them and Rashad Penny, the whole offense is becoming fantasy relevant. So shout out to Geno Smith. He gets my game ball of the week. I'm interested to see how long he can carry this high. If it's too good to be true, when will it end? But for now, I am going to ride this high into Geno Smith land.
All right. My game ball it's not too hard to figure out. It's somebody that I've just praised pretty much my whole life. He's taken me places. He's given me pain. It's Nick Chubb. It's not that. It's easy. There's really not much to be said. I've already said everything. Just a lot of points coming your way. Just start him, forget him, ignore everybody else who doubts him. Just ride the Nick Chubb wagon to fantasy heaven.
My game ball goes to a guy who was cut from someone's team, TJ Hawkinson. And TJ Hawkinson.
The fact that you did this during the podcast, after we probably already talked about it. Damn.
8 receptions, 179 yards, 2 touchdowns. And the reason I want to highlight him is because he has the best stats per game for a tight end in Detroit Lions history. Like no other tight end has done better than how well TJ Hawkinson did last game. So Hawkinson gets game ball.
Hey, speaking of tight ends real quick, do you guys know which tight end leads all of football in targets?
Higbee.
That is correct. Tyler Higbee leads all, more than Andrews, more than Kelsey, more than every other tight end in the league. Tyler Higbee leads the NFL in tight end targets. So,
well, if you go back to our episodes of tight ends, he was one of the sleeper guys.
He was along with half the league, but he was on there as a potential sleeper. He was definitely on there as a sleeper. That's it for awards, guys. Let's end the episode with Moneymaker. I had 0 bets. For the first week, I had 0 bets put out. And the only reason why is because we were having a little bit fun doing this whole same game parlay on DraftKings. And wouldn't you know it, me and Shishot end up putting together a same game parlay on that Sunday night football game, Chiefs and Buccaneers, and a casual plus 1,700 payout, 50 to win $900, 900 big ones. That was unbelievable. What a rush. It's just, I don't even know. I couldn't even put it into words how everything kind of fell into our lap. And then the Leonard Fournette touchdown at the end to seal it on the reception of all things. I mean, I thought I had already written it off, like probably the beginning of the fourth quarter, honestly, not thinking that there was a reason Leonard Fournette was going to score because of how much Rachaad White was seeing playing time. And because, like you said, it was entire drive. So I was like, what the hell is going on? Why is he just out for an entire drive? But casually, the final drive of the season, he catches the touchdown, and Shishot and I rejoice in a plus $1,700 payout.
Yeah.
I mean, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. How good did that feel? Honestly, how good did that feel?
That felt amazing. I just need to like harness that energy and not be too erratic with it. Because now I can buy a PS5. I can buy all my plane tickets home. You know, like that wasn't happening. And all that happened because, you know, you were like, hey, here are some really good picks. What else do you want to add? I was like, Leonard Fournette. You know, let's take two more overs on those shitty ass points that Vegas put for those two great teams. You know, so it's like it was just a great collaboration of great minds, and we came out with some points.
Yeah, I was super excited. I mean, I've been sending you guys mine for the past couple of weeks, and it kept being like 6 out of 7, 6 out of 7, 6 out of 7, and then the 1 week Shishot jumps in, he just adds just enough sprinkle and flavor to get that 7 of 7. So awesome victory. I honestly enjoy doing these more than I do kind of the bets of individual games. It's just a nice combination, and it's not as much risk with a lot higher reward, right? So if we can, you know, put together one a weekend or something like that, we'll try to put it out at least just so you guys can look at it and track how we do. But if there are other bets, obviously I'll tweet them out at The Only Playbook on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube. If you listen to us on all of or any of the podcast platforms. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Only Playbook. That is it for week 4 recap, guys. Any final words before I go take some medicine and go to bed?
I feel better.
Thanks, man. I feel like I had to bring an extra level of energy. I kind of think my nose is red. I feel like my bag's under my eyes. I look like I haven't slept in like weeks. I'm probably still hungover for the 3rd day in a row. It's just not a good sight for me. So
we've all been there.
I'm going to take that, maybe that NyQuil, and just pass out or something like that. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed your football weekend. Hope you guys won in fantasy. I have yet to pick up a victory in our league, 0-4. So losers rejoice. If anybody wants to talk to me about what it feels like to be a loser, I will know all about that. So if you guys will, let us know in the comments, tweet at us, talk to us, Instagram message us, let us know how your fantasy team is doing. If there's any way we can help, we are more than happy to. We're The Only Playbook. Enjoy your guys.
Roll one gentleman.